Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to talk to you today about how humans is using mobile technology to democratize research project recruitment. Quick note about me, my background is in digital technology and innovation with a focus, I would say, on product strategy and customer success. I've been doing that for about 12 years now, since I've joined the team at 10K Humans. I've been interested to learn about all the emerging technology in this space on the one hand, and also on the other hand, I have seen definitely just how ripe this space is for significant development of technology driven change and innovation. And I'm so happy to be part of the 10K team because I think we really do have a vision for using digital technology for high quality research project recruitment and management. And that's what I'll be sharing with you today. I'll focus mainly on our vision for using technology for recruitment and a little less on the project management side of it. All right, that's about me. Let me start by touching briefly on something I think we're all probably aware of to some degree. Some of you maybe even a lot more so than I am, being new to the industry myself. That is the problem with databases. And I think that databases of respondents can be absolutely magical when they're carefully monitored and maintained and nurtured and pruned like a bonsai tree or something. And I'm sure many of you are working with companies that use and rely heavily on databases, and you're probably doing a fine job with them, but there's no doubt that it does take a lot of work. Uh, for example, one day a potential research project participant is single and unmarried, and the next day she's not. There's no doubt for all of us that at this moment in our lives, there are things that about us that are true that weren't true a year ago or maybe even a week ago. And it's hard to account for all of those rapidly changing demographics and psychographics for any group of individuals. So not only is it hard to keep records up to date, but it's also getting harder and harder to keep out bad actors. At least that's what we on the 10K side have seen. Not only bad actors, but bots, literally just hackers creating things that are taking surveys all day long and making, a few bucks every day. So that's been a big challenge. And as a matter of fact, I was talking with a member of the insights team at Procter and Gamble. I'm in the Cincinnati area, and of course, P&G looms large here as a company that does indeed conduct a lot of market research. So this guy, he's been working in the insights team at Procter and Gamble for a long time. He shared with me that back in the day, they would do some consumer insights research, and there would be a relatively small percentage of responses that would come back somewhere in the single digits that they would consider bad data that wasn't usable. So we're talking 7, 8, 9%, something like that. There'd be duplicate responses, obviously fraudulent responses, that sort of thing. Now he says it's not uncommon that maybe 30% of the responses that they get back are obviously fraudulent and therefore unusable. And I know this is anecdotal, and some of you may have a lot more insight into that even than I do. But given P&G's commitment to consumer research, I took what he said pretty seriously. So because database management is so difficult, we started considering some other options, really a solution to an effective and efficient recruitment process that didn't rely on databases. And we landed on a model of active recruitment as an alternative. And it's a model we've been employing for quite some time now in the real world, I'll say. And now we're just about to begin supplementing our real world processes with a new digital experience. And I'll be talking more about that, of course. But what does active recruitment actually mean for us? It means that we find participants where they exist naturally, participants who exhibit the behavior that we're looking for, whatever the topic of some particular study that we're recruiting for is. So practically, we find these participants by seeking out and interacting with them, whether in person or online in relevant groups, forums, subreddits, really anywhere they're hanging out, or we partner with influencers, charities, organizations, people who are plugged into their own communities we leverage them to promote a study that we might be running or recruiting for at a given time. Plus, as I said, we're about to launch our 10K Voices app, which really seeks to democratize research participant recruitment. And so we'll spend the rest of our time today walking through the app that we're about to launch and explore what it's all about. All right, so what is this app? Well, 10K Voices app is a community in which qualified networkers and interceptors can discover open gigs and then sign up to recruit participants for those research projects, those gigs, essentially. I'll probably be using gig and job and project interchangeably, so sorry about that. App users essentially get paid to network. So specifically, they get paid for each successful recruit for that research project. And we'll dive into it a little bit deeper in just a second, but overall, just to give you the picture, the app makes it easy for gig workers to find gigs they're interested in, sign up, and then immediately start sharing their QR code. That's a unique QR code to them and unique links with relevant online networks or in-person groups and on social media platforms. And these unique links and QR codes are really the key to making this whole thing work on the technology side, because they allow us to track exactly who recruited each participant and where they came from so that we can pay those gig workers when the project is complete. So as I said, for gig workers, the proposition is simple. You get paid to network. And for us on the 10K side, the idea is that really we're going to, if we are going to actively recruit this with this new model of active recruitment for us, if we're going to actively recruit participants for most of the projects that come our way, we can either massively scale up our project management resources, or we can build our own network of networkers who are already connected to the people around them in their own communities, or there are people who don't necessarily have to already be connected to a specific community that relates to a project that we're recruiting for. They could just be these networkers, these interceptors could just be people who are excited about doing some digging, some detective work, and really discovering how to connect with whoever our target audience might be and where they are. And I should mention before we get too much deeper into this, we're really only looking at one flow inside of this app, this new piece of technology that we've been working on. That is the gig workers, the people who are actually doing the recruiting. There's another corresponding content management platform for our internal use. So for project managers, project assistants, that's what they'll use to create the gigs, share the gigs, monitor the progress so they can see all the recruits coming in, and then interact with the gig workers as well. But that's not the focus for today. Just wanted to throw that out there if you're wondering how it all works together. All right, so let's dive in a little bit here. Okay, let's take a look at, hopefully you can see that. Okay, I know it might be a little small on your screen, but let's take a look at how a user discovers and learns more about a gig or a job that he can work. So if we start here, we have the home screen, and there's a lot sort of packed into this view. The basic premise of this screen is that users can browse and discover different gig topics and types that might be interesting to them. At the top, there are some filters so that users can easily look for only those gig types that interest them. For now, we're focusing on two gig types. It's networking and intercepting. Really, the only difference is that intercepting gigs require the gig worker, the app user, to be at a certain time and place. So a good example of this would be if we are going to conduct some short survey or a poll from specific conference attendees. In that scenario, the gig worker would have to go to that conference to interact or intercept some of those conference attendees. So that's important. As we look down the page here on the home screen, we have, of course, just a little image that illustrates the main topic of that gig and a little tag written in purple above that image right there. That just tells me as an app user, as a gig worker, how much money I could make if I hit that maximum number of recruits for that. So in this example, $200. If on the CMS side, we've set the limit to 10 recruits and I get $20, 10 recruits per networker and I get $20 for each one, then I can make a maximum of $200 if my math works out for that gig. So it's just helpful to know we're communicating that up front. Hey, here's how much money you can make if you work that gig. Of course, there's a little title and tagline, as well as a little hourglass icon, which just next to it is a number of hours, a period of time that indicates how much time is left on that gig. So when the deadline's going to hit. If you're going to recruit for that thing, do you have a day left to do that, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, something like that? And we can adjust the display order of these gigs on this home screen if we want to prioritize gigs based on urgency, for example. So if we've been having difficulty recruiting for one and the deadline is coming up, clients waiting, we can push it to the top and even maybe boost incentives if we want to try to get it filled more quickly and hit our recruitment numbers for that particular gig. All right, that's just a little on the home screen. There's a little bit more. If we scroll down there, we actually have this leveling up section, and that's important because there were two key themes that we tried to keep in mind as we designed this new digital experience. That is transparency and setting the gig workers up for success. So this leveling up section gives us an opportunity to provide content that educates the gig workers to help make them better network interceptors. So this content could be videos that we make or blog posts that we write. It could be any other content that comes from 10K, but it may also be where we post announcements about webinars that we're going to host, or maybe meetups that we're going to host in conjunction with the best networkers, the top performing networkers and interceptors, even in a given location. So maybe we're going to host a meetup. They can network with each other. They can share best practices and tips for success. And then below that section is the coming soon section. And that's important to us for a few reasons. One, it helps gig workers see what's coming up so they can make their plans for the week. If I'm an Uber driver as well, I use a 10K Voices app to network, I get paid to network, but I also drive for Uber. Maybe I know my car has to be in the shop on Thursday, getting my tires rotated, getting oil changed, whatever the case may be. I can check the 10K Voices app and see, oh, hey, on Thursday, there's going to be this gig it's called Green Thumbs. It's going to be around gardening. I know a bunch of people who garden. I'm pretty well connected with that community already. That's great. I can hit notify me, and then I'll basically get it on my calendar that this thing's going to be ready for Thursday for me to start recruiting for. So it's a way for me to just plan out my week. It also helps our PMs understand velocity and have a better understanding overall of project timelines. So by that, I mean that if we can get essentially a show of hands from our users for how many of them are interested in working a job or a gig before it's even live, then we have a better handle on how long it's going to take us to get that thing recruited, not only before the gig starts, but even while it's ongoing. So that'll help us not only just have better internal capacity and planning, but as we get better and better at understanding how all of this is going to work together, even communicating that back to the client. And then we'll also be, on this coming soon section, we'll also be implementing some gamification elements throughout the app, which is another big opportunity here. So as a gig worker, for example, reaches a higher tier of engagement, a higher score, we can show him this coming soon section earlier. So essentially he can get first dibs on some of these gigs or jobs, or maybe we don't even show this section until a user has reached a certain level of engagement. That's a question we'll have to answer as this gets out into the wild, but that's kind of how we're thinking about it right now. All right, let's keep rolling. So as we get a little deeper into the app experience, this is just an example, this screen, of what it looks like if I click into a particular job. So I have a longer description really telling me what this gig or this job is all about. More information about payment, including, importantly, I think, is this section, or this little note about going back to that theme of transparency about when I can be expected to get paid for my successful recruits for that gig. I mean, that's something that we do get emails about because we are employing a networking and intercepting type model, model of active recruitment already in the real world. As I said, we're already doing this. We get emails from people all the time, even though we've told them before, like, hey, I recruited this many people. When do I get paid for that? Even though we've already communicated that up front. So having this as a reference for people to refer back to at any time, I think will be helpful and just actually streamline some of the communication that our PMs and PAs get sucked into right now. All right, just a little more detail on this gig or job detail screen. If it's an intercepting gig, we're going to show a map Pretty basic. It does all the stuff that you'd expect a map to do in a mobile app experience. You can zoom in and out, and we can show multiple locations, that sort of thing. But it just reinforces what's expected of the gig worker who's networking or intercepting for this particular job. Like, hey, you're gonna have to be here. This is exactly where you need to go at this time. So we're trying to put it all out there up front to avoid and minimize questions once they're actively working that gig. All right. So we do imagine, I'm just going to keep going through the app here. We do imagine that a gig user can actively be networking or intercepting for multiple gigs at one time. So here's what it might look like if I've signed up to participate as a networker in multiple gigs. You can see how many people have clicked the links that I've shared, and we'll talk more about this in just a second, what it actually looks like, how many people have qualified, and how many people have confirmed. And then here, if I click into one of those, here's what you're seeing. Here's how easy it really is. If I signed up to participate, and indeed I qualified to participate as a networker, for example, for a gig or a job, I can click into the details, hit this big share gig button, and here's what I get. Something that's like this. It's a unique QR code to me, and then these unique URLs are unique to me, and they're also unique for the various websites and social media platforms that I might share this URL. So whether I'm doing it in person, where maybe we have a research project that focuses on dog owners, so we go to the dog park and we stand outside the gates and we just hit people as they come out. I can use my QR code and they can scan it, and that'll take them to the qualification survey. Or if I'm going to share it online, some Reddit forum related to dog owners, I can do that just as easily. And as I said, this is really the key to making it all work nicely, so we can make sure the right networker or interceptor gets paid for the right recruit when the project's done. And then here's just another little snapshot of this section of how many link clicks I had, how many were confirmed, and how many qualified. But we'll see that in just a little bit more detail right here. Next. All right, so not only can a user see how many people have qualified, but he can also see the status of every single person that he's recruited. And I think this is like such an awesome feature to be able to offer our app users. They can see the name, the status of every person I've recruited, whether they're qualified, whether in the rescreen stage, disqualified, whatever the case may be. I can also see when that person applied to participate as a research project participant. And what's nice is that if I'm the networker working this job, and I know Steve, my buddy Steve, who's a good fit, I think, for this thing, said he was going to do it, and I don't see his name here, I can send him a text, apply a little social pressure, and say, hey, Steve, you want to make $100? You told me you were going to apply. Now's your last chance. You only have until tomorrow. You know, I've already got 2 people confirmed. My max is 3, so you could be that last one if you wanted to. So shifting the onus a little bit off of our PMs and our PAs and for the recruitment overall, and really putting it in the hands of these app users. All right, just a couple more things I want to talk through real quick. One is just a chat feature. I may have mentioned it already, but it's really just a way to streamline communication. You know, as much as we communicate upfront about the gig and what's expected of the app users when they're actually networking or intercepting, there are always going to be questions. They're always going to get stuck on occasion. And so we made it really easy for them to reach out, to basically throw up the red flag and say, hey, I need help, I'm stuck. They can chat directly with a PM or a PA, and they're all organized. Again, if I'm working multiple gigs at once, they're all organized by gig, so I can keep my conversations separate. Pretty simple, but pretty nice way to handle the chat, I think. And that goes directly to our CMS. So whoever's in the CMS, whether that's a PM or PA or someone else from the 10K team, can see all of these chats. They're all organized nicely and can respond to people individually as needed. We also have a couple other sections that I'm not showing today, an FAQ and an announcement section that are a little bit more, I don't want to say global, but they're not one-to-one communication. They're more one-sided 10K communicating to everybody involved in this gig. So if we have an announcement that affects all of the networkers or all the interceptors on this gig, we can communicate that really easily, as well as an FAQ that might relate specifically to that gig. Some questions that we think people are going to have before they start. All right, last couple things I want to show you. We've got a notification screen, pretty basic. There's a lot of work that we're excited to do here on the notifications, tailoring those things. If y'all have any suggestions, I'm open to them, but really what is what are the most helpful notifications to people? Do we want to notify them every time that they share the link and somebody gets into somebody does qualify? Maybe they get a notification, hey, you qualified. Doesn't mean you're going to get paid yet because that person has to make it through all of the rounds of qualification to finally make it to confirmed, at which point you presumably get paid because you've successfully recruited that person. Maybe we want to only notify them when they've got new someone confirmed. Maybe we want to notify them when there's a new intercepting gig in their location, in their area, within 50 miles of them or whatever. So yeah, open to suggestions there. We have a lot of exploration to do with that one. But I think the last big piece of the app I wanted to talk about is really this profile screen. It's sort of like your personal dashboard. That's how I think of it. So you can see how much money you've made by networking for us or intercepting for us. You can cash out whenever you want. You can see how many gigs you've completed. You can see how many successful recruits you have, which is kind of a cool stat. If I'm a user and I'm really engaged in this thing, it'd be cool to see that number go up as I use the app more and more and have more successful recruits. There's also a rating system. It's a two-way rating system, which I think is pretty cool. So not only are we on the 10K side rating the gig workers and saying, hey, here's how qualified these candidates were. Here's how communicative this networker was for us. You might get a higher rating if it turns out, larger percentage of the people you recruited were actually good qualified candidates who got confirmed. Your rating might go up, and some other things as well. We can actually help you understand what we think you're best at as an app user. But then the other side of that two-way rating system is the app users telling us how good of a job we did in setting up the gig. Was it explained well? What would be expected of you? Those types of things. Was this maybe just a more or less difficult topic to recruit for? And that'll help us not only communicate better to our app users and gig workers, but then it could affect us all the way down the line to, or I should say upstream, even to pricing when we get a deal with a client. If we're hearing from our gig workers that a similar project that we did just 6 months ago was really, really difficult to recruit for, and we didn't think it was at first, then we know how to price that upfront with the client a little more accurately, or at least hopefully we would know. We could learn from our own mistakes. Okay, the last big thing I wanted to talk about in the couple of minutes we have left here is just how we handle fraud. So I started out saying that fraud is a thing we're probably all concerned about, and that's certainly, even though we're not relying on databases for the most part, and we've adopted this model of active recruitment, it is still something that we do need to pay attention to. So this is a little roadmap of all of the different verifications that we have to try to at least eliminate or reduce bad actors. So they have to verify their phone number, their email address, their ID, and video when they come into the app, when they sign up as a networker or interceptor. And I'll just show you here. It's another little illustration of that. So you got to verify your phone number, and then we send a temporary code to that phone number, and then you've got to punch that in. We're probably all familiar with that sort of flow. And then you also have to verify your email address. And any one of those in isolation can be more or less reliable, but altogether, it is really helpful for us to have more confidence that someone is who he says he is. There's also, we do take it a step further with a couple things. One is that we use Stripe's ID verification system. So Stripe is the same company that handles all kinds of transactions, monetary transactions, probably millions every year, I imagine. And they have a really sophisticated government issued photo ID verification system. So they can basically tell us if that ID is real or not. And so we have every person who signs up to become a networker, he has to take a picture of a government issued photo ID for us to verify in the Stripe system that we use. And then we also have people record a short video of themselves. And so it's just, hey, introduce yourself, and we are going to we literally manually look at every single one of these videos, and we look for a couple things like, does the surrounding match the location this person claims to reside? does it look like it was taken at night? And we'll see a timestamp of when that video was submitted. Hey, it was submitted uh, in the evening, and it looks like it's at night in the background. So, okay, cool. That just gives us a little more confidence. So there's a little bit of an objective verification with the government issued photo ID, as well as the subjective verification of this video. All right, I know we're coming up on time. The last thing I wanted to leave with is, I'll wrap it up with, is just a short quote from our CEO that I think describes what we're trying to do. And that is 10K Voices is an adaptation and evolution on recruiting research participants. It takes the process from passive to active by combining the power of network effects, community, and technology. This gives you unrivaled access to real people in real time while validating the behavior you're looking for. And that's it. That was kind of a whirlwind tour of this new, at least not even half, probably 30% of this new technology that we're excited to launch soon. Any questions?
Sorry about that, Chris. There was a delay in my computer, but thank you so much for
Yeah.
that presentation. You have some questions here. Some of these came in relatively early in your presentation, so it's
Okay.
possible you answered the question as you went on, but I'm going to read them out anyway.
Sure.
First question here, who compensates the participants, not gig workers?
Yes, we do. It's just part of our billing structure with the client that we've got enough set aside as part of the deal to compensate them.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Question from David, how do you manage having gig workers instructed to intercept at a specific location with location/store employees that might not want them to be there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it has to be like a public forum where they can legally go, and they can't be disruptive. That is a really interesting question, though, to think about if we've got an interceptor who's causing a commotion. How do we handle that? And honestly, I don't know. That's probably an ad hoc thing that we have to make. How do we shut their involved down, I guess. But a lot of times, if it's a big event, say it's a conference, and we're going to have multiple interceptors there, we'll have a representative of the 10K team actually there and sort of managing people on site. This is a good
Yeah,
question.
that makes sense. And there's a few questions in that vein. Question from Tatiana, she said, echoing David's question, certain places might require consent for recruiting on the premises. How do gig workers handle the situation?
Yeah, any of that stuff, we would be proactively managing and engaging. If there's a specific site that we know they're going to go to, we would reach out to them ahead of time to make sure that we have clearance to do that we have their permission to do that, certainly. And I think, the reality is too, is that a lot of what makes a good interceptor comes down to personality, so it has to be somebody who not only is comfortable being in an environment where they're just approaching people, but also that they're good at it, that they have the right personality that's not off-putting.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And then a last question here as we're wrapping up from Will. How do you guard against fraud at the respondent level, making sure interceptors actually go where they're supposed to, making sure networkers aren't just taking it themselves or sending to friends and coaching them on how to qualify?
Yeah, totally. I mean, certainly there's always a little bit of risk. I would say the main thing that we do is we have a very manual process. There's a lot of technology, like what we're seeing is sort of on the front end, just getting recruits in. But even before we let networkers network for us, we do have that manual process of reviewing the video and that sort of thing. And we also structure our surveys, our qualification surveys for participants in such a way that it's relatively easy, although nobody's perfect at this, relatively easy for us to spot when people have just made up responses, or when it appears like the same person is taking multiple surveys representing himself as different people. We use some simple techniques like asking the same question twice in a different way in a different survey. One's open-ended, one is multiple choice. We make sure the answers match up, that sort of thing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we got through
Yeah.
all the questions and right at time here. So
Okay.
Thanks so
Well,
much
thank you,
for
everybody.
answering all those. And yeah, everyone, thanks for being here. If you click that book time with me button at the top of your screen, it'll also take you to the page for 10K Humans where you can kind of learn more, book a little meeting if you want to. So thanks so much, Chris. Everyone, thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.